This is Carolina Ghost Towns, a podcast about the vanished towns and lost communities in South Carolina, North Carolina, and maybe a few other places. I'm your host, Tom Taylor. I'm still up here in the Pacific Northwest, so I thought I'd do another episode about a ghost town in this area. In last week's episode, I played a rerun of an earlier episode about the towns of Samish and Atlanta on Samish Island. These two towns had an unexpected connection with North Carolina and its logging industry. Today's town shares some of that same connection. Today, we take a look at the ghost town of Skagit City. I don't want to get political in this podcast, but let's take a moment to talk about the Confederate battle flag. When I was growing up, I had a large stars and bars hanging on my bedroom wall. I didn't think about any deeper meanings. I just thought it was a cool wall decoration. My wife grew up in the Los Angeles area and attended South High School. When her school played football against North High School, they reenacted the Civil War, with her school flying the Confederate colors since they were the South. Knowing how divisive the Confederate battle flag is, we wouldn't do either of those things now. I still see these flags all over the Carolinas, usually as a sign of protest or of a rebellious nature. But it catches me off guard to see one out of context. That was my feeling when I started seeing all of these along the Skagit River Valley. Mostly, I'd see these as stickers on vehicles, but occasionally I'd spot an actual flag tucked back on a remote farm in the valley. I took this as a sign of how deeply connected this area is to the Carolinas, and, right or wrong, how some chose to celebrate that connection. Skagit City was located on Fur Island in the Skagit River Delta. It was once one of the largest, most vibrant towns along the river and served as a gateway to the logging communities upriver. As I covered in the Samish Atlanta episode, many of these loggers came from North Carolina. The areas along the Skagit and Sauk rivers became known as Tar Heel Land for the number of relocated North Carolinians in the area. The Skagit River divides into the North Branch and the South Branch before flowing into Skagit Bay on the upper Puget Sound. The Skagit Delta was first home to several Salish tribes, including the Swinomish, Samish, and Upper Skagit groups. These Native Americans harvested salmon, gathered shellfish, and maintained the natural prairies along the river. Coastal and river bands constructed massive cedar plank longhouses and carved cedar canoes used to navigate the forks of the river surrounding Fur Island. The first European settlers came to the area in the early 1800s. As was the case in so many of these encounters, there was conflict. The Point Elliott Treaty of 1855 ceded much of the First Nations lands to the Europeans and established reservations on Fidalgo Island. This opened more of the land for settlement by Europeans. First John Campbell, then later John Barker, established trading posts at the forks of the Skagit. On his website, Skagit River Journal, Noel Burrisaw says this of Campbell, read here by an AI voice.
A man named Campbell in 1868 established a small store at the forks of the river where he kept and disposed of the standard goods for cash. This pioneer storekeeper of the Skagit had the untoward habit of spirituous imbibition to an unhealthy degree. On one occasion when he had reached a satiated condition, in his strenuous efforts to handle a barrel of sugar, which constituted his whole stock and trade, he managed to dump it in the river and to follow it immediately himself. A sea wash, who was not quite so drunk, extricated him from the watery depths. After some tedious work, the barrel of sugar was also landed. It had absorbed so much water as to be turned to molasses, in which condition he disposed of it at advantageous prices to the hungry Indians.
As for Barker, Burrisaw states,
A certain trader named John Barker had come to the valley during the previous year and had erected a shake shanty on the island near the junction of the forks. Among other merchandise which Barker dealt was the ever-present and ever-destructive whiskey, with which he supplied whites and Indians alike. Immediately across the North Fork, a band of Indians had established themselves and made some small clearings upon which were erected rude huts. One morning, Barker was found lying in his shanty, his throat cut and his store ransacked. Shortly afterwards, some goods supposed to have been a part of the stock were found in the possession of Quinby Clark, who lived nearby, but before any investigation had been undertaken, Clark left the region. It is said that some of the South Forkers formed a mob in the meantime and hanged 2 Indians, supposing them to be the guilty parties. It appeared by subsequent investigation that Clark had shortly before wanted to get a squaw for whom $30 was demanded, and that right after the murder, he raised the necessary money. Also, a subsequent investigation of the store showed plainly that the robbery and murder had been committed by a white man, for things which Indians would have taken were left, and those which a white man would have taken were gone. Barker had been a Mason, and the members of this fraternity spent 3 years in seeking the supposed murderer, but without avail.
Burrisaw's Skagit River Journal website is an excellent resource for this region, and I'll be quoting from it quite a bit. Travel further upstream on the river was blocked by 2 large, ancient log jams. The largest was 1.5 miles long and some 14 feet deep. It was said that one could walk across the river on the logs, and that new trees were even growing out of the log jam. Since river travel was the primary mode of transportation, settlement and commerce was somewhat restricted to the area below the fork. A town soon developed along the banks of the South Fork of the Skagit River, near where Campbell and Barker had their trading posts. According to author JoAnn Rowe in her book, Ghost Camps and Boom Towns, quote, Skagit City originally faced the water and had docks and landings to serve river traffic. By 1872, Skagit City had a post office, and soon the town was a regular stop and head of navigation for sternwheelers on the river. Close quote. Rumors of gold upstream on the Skagit attracted many adventurers. As I mentioned in my Samish and Atlanta episode, some of these were displaced Confederates seeking not only their fortunes, but asylum from the recent war. The migration of loggers from North Carolina would come later. What this meant for Skagit City was that it would soon become a boom town. According to Rowe, quote, only 2 years after the trading posts emerged, a complete town was in place. A school, churches, several stores, hotels, saloons, a grange with 40 members, a Good Templars lodge with 45 members, and a union hall. Surprisingly soon, the settlers threw up regular board construction homes, not log dwellings, and social life developed. Close quote. Daniel E. Gage was one of the most prominent merchants and civic leaders. An 1876 article in the Northern Star states that
Daniel Gage's new store building at Skagit City is rapidly approaching completion. It is 50 feet long by 24 wide and 20-foot posts. It will be 2 stories high, the lower story for store purposes and the upper for a public hall. Mr. Gage is rapidly building up for himself a splendid business, and well deserves it by his energy and sterling business qualities.
I found several advertisements from that period for D. E. Gage's general merchandise, stating that he quote, keeps constantly on hand a good assortment of dry goods, groceries, hardware, crockery, boots, and shoes, close quote. The Northern Star advertised for other craftsmen and vendors in the area.
Secure the best. R.L. Vernon, manufacturer of buckskin gloves, Skagit City, Washington Territory. None but the best material used. All gloves sewed with waxed thread, the fingers hand-sewed. Orders solicited from stores as well as from individuals from all parts of the Sound. Price list furnished on application. All work warranted.
Steamboat traffic carried goods and passengers from Seattle and Port Townsend. One of the most well-known of these was the Fanny Lake, captained by Joshua Green. Green's family once owned a textile mill in Mississippi that made Confederate uniforms. They lost their mill and all of their assets during the Civil War, and, like so many other Southerners, moved to the Pacific Northwest to make a new start. The Fanny Lake was particularly suited for the Skagit River. It had a shallow draft which could run up onto the beaches and communities all along the river without the need of a wharf or a dock. I found ads in the Seattle Intelligencer for Fanny Lake and other steamboats leaving for northern settlements. These would drop off cargo at Skagit City and prospectors heading on up into the river valley. A ferry was established across the South Fork across to the mainland, where prospectors and settlers would travel further inland. Some of these travelers would settle further upriver and establish another town, Mount Vernon. Others would continue on up to logging camps in the Cascades. According to the website Tales of the Magic Skagit, the first white settlers on record in the Mount Vernon area were David E. Kimball, Jasper Gates, and Joseph F. Dwelly, who arrived between 1869 and 1870. These early citizens of Mount Vernon applied for assistance from the government to clear the log jam so that steamboats could travel from Skagit City to the new town of Mount Vernon. According to Rose Ghost Camps and Boomtown, quote, in 1874, settlers petitioned Congress for $25,000 to remove the jams, but an investigator sent to assess the situation estimated that removal would cost 4 times that much. Tiring of governmental delays, the settlers decided to do the job themselves, close quote. The work was treacherous. Swirling river currents and shifting logs made the work nearly impossible, but by 1877, a route had been cleared between the two towns. Further improvements were made on the river, and, quote, by the summer of 1879, the upper Skagit River was open to navigation, and commerce flowed unimpeded along its waters, close quote, according to Tales of the Magic Skagit. Boat traffic to Mount Vernon increased, bypassing Skagit City. In 1883, Skagit County was created from land that once had been part of Whatcom County to the north. The towns of LaConner, Anacortes, and Mount Vernon were under consideration for the county seat. Skagit City had declined to the point that it wasn't even in the running. Mount Vernon won out, further eclipsing Skagit City. By the late 1800s, the town had only one remaining store. The 1890 census reported that Skagit City only had 50 residents, while Mount Vernon had a population of 800. The coming of the railroad further bypassed the town, and the new towns of Burlington, Cedro, and Woolley pulled the remaining population northward. In hindsight, Skagit City was doomed from the start. Fur Island was subject to flooding from the river. Dikes had been built to protect the town, but these couldn't hold back the floodwaters from the Skagit River once the log jams had been cleared. Intense flooding in the 1890s destroyed buildings and undermined the dikes. By 1904, even the post office had closed, routing all mail through Mount Vernon. None of the commercial buildings that once made up Skagit City have survived. The old Skagit City School is still there, but it's been moved back about a half a mile from the river. It's been restored and now serves as a community and history center. In 1999, the town of Mount Vernon erected a memorial to the men who cleared the log jam, making river travel accessible. It reads as follows:
James Cochran, Marvin Minnick, Fritz Dibbern, John Quirk, Daniel Hines, Dennis Storrs, Donald McDonald, Joseph Wilson. From 1876 to 1879, these men, using only loggers' tools and their own strength and determination, labored at the dangerous task of cutting through and clearing away the massive log jams that had blocked this bend of the river from bank to bank and about 2 miles long, and through their heroic efforts opened the river to commerce, navigation, and development. May their names be honored for as long as the river runs free.
Fur Island is a fertile farming area with vast fields growing many different crops. The Skagit Wildlife Area is a designated sanctuary for migratory shorebirds. Each year, thousands of snow geese and trumpeter swans descend on the fields and are a sight to behold when they take off en masse. I've been privileged to visit the old Skagit City School and the location of the once prominent town. Now, there are a couple of farmhouses where stores and taverns once stood. I drove up and over the current dike to a river access area and walked out to a sandy beach where steamboats once passed, and once a ferry carried passengers and carts across the river. I tried to imagine all of the bustling activity, but now it was quiet, with only the sound of the Skagit River and an occasional cry from a bald eagle. That's it for this episode of Carolina Ghost Towns. I'll have links and photos in the show notes. By the time you hear this, I'll be back home in the Carolinas with another story about a ghost town closer to our area. Thanks for listening.
In this southern ghost town, we found a story untold. In the shadows of the past, we unravel, secrets unfold. With each step we take, we journey back in time. In this southern ghost town, we leave our footprints behind.
Thanks for listening. The opening music was composed by Lex FM with additional music from Pixabay. The song Southern Ghost Town was generated by Suno AI. All other music was composed and recorded by me, Tom Taylor. Carolina Ghost Towns is a part of the Random Connections empire. It's pretty much a one-man show, so I wear all the hats, including producer, writer, researcher, sound engineer, publicist, and bartender. If you like the show, please subscribe on your favorite pod venue and be sure to give us feedback. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for the show, you can reach me at carolinaghosttownspod@gmail.com. For more information and show notes, visit randomconnections.com. Thank you.
In this southern ghost town, we found a story untold. In the shadows of the past, we unravel, secrets unfold. With each step we take, we journey back in time. In this southern ghost town, we leave our footprints behind.